about this very important subject. One of my concerns recently is not many people seem to be paying attention to Afghanistan. This last election hardly, I don't think it did mention Afghanistan as an issue. Well, while in very general ways, our two positions may not seem very different, but as we proceed, I believe the distinctions will be clear. Rather than dispute the ideals of my fellow pursuer of relative truth, I will be more concerned about the consequences of his positions. We both agree that a policy of continued loss of life and wealth as at present should be replaced by a more rational and humanistic strategy. I will even add an argument that Bill has left out. With America showing various signs of incipient decline, which you keep hearing about from the pundits, we should reflect on the fate of other empire-like hegemonies who, because of the overextension of military and other authority, entered short or long-term declines. With a colossal drain of national wealth through our present two wars, one without any justification, we may be well assuring our own further decline. That is the war contributing, or could be contributing to that. It is hard to argue against Bill's four humanistic strategies in their very generalized form, but the route to achieving them will be filled with monstrous complexities. For example, the Afghan world's confounding, unpredictable, disruptive entanglement that the US has done so much to create, beyond the immense military damage, has importantly included the throwing around of great bricks, if you remember that expression. They don't just deal in single bills out there. That is bricks of money to the warlords and contractors. The latter, contractors, being more numerous even than our soldiers. But the contracts are largely local people. They're not mostly Americans. A small number are. Of that money, some has wound up in the hands of the Taliban by a route of both warlords and contractors. And this is, it might be called protection money. Money that the warlords and the contractors, and I said most of them Afghans, these contractors are servicing by logistics and so forth, our troops. And these careless monies continue as much to rampant corruption, which we consider nepotism, but which is their cultural obligation. They are wrong if they are not, in our eyes, corrupt. And all this money floating around has done as much to create more corruption than their own cultural obligation to, in fact, take care of their relatives and friends. So to disengage from this particular now quite entrenched system where the contractors or warlords pay the Taliban off to let their shipments or whatever they're doing go by. So this winds up, of course, in Taliban hands, and as some writers have said, it's undoubtedly caused the death of some American soldiers. But anyway, the point is it's very hard to get out of such a systematic entanglement that so many people are involved in. Well, because it's so complicated and entangled, and this is just one of the many kinds of entanglements, that we will need to take great care and intelligence and even patience, if not more harm is to be done. And that should be our guiding, quote, exit strategy. Do not do no more harm, do more harm. We've already done enough, or realistically as little harm as possible. As we owe the Afghans and the safety of our soldiers much care in withdrawing from our present military strategy, we hope we can participate eventually in constructive development aid for a devastated Afghanistan. But even that will be far from easy. Of course, we should be aware of the Afghans' impressive history of unifying resistance to foreign invaders. But history never repeats itself verbatim, any more than Iraq serves as a model for the strategy in Afghanistan, where our surge there has achieved little more than deaths, more deaths. The present military spokespeople and the civilian experts in and out of government sharply disagree as to the progress on the ground. If you're following the news, it's back and forth. The military are saying progress. The unmilitary people are very skeptical of that. General Petraeus seems bent on reporting progress only, presumably to allow him to mobilize support to carry on the same aggressive assaults with their marginal effect, and are unlikely to drive the Taliban, which is apparently his plan, to the negotiating table. Fortunately, the American public, as of now, seems to have little stomach for more of the same. There's a long article in the latest Atlantic, which some of you may read, where an observer who was with the troops reported strong signs of resistance to orders to go out on dangerous patrols and a questioning of the point of the whole mission in Afghanistan. In other words, we may be, I wouldn't say torturing, but disturbing our troops' well-being, their mental feelings about what they're involved in. We hardly want to increase the instability to Pakistan, but Pakistani instability has been their norm. It may even be that the ascendance of their military domination of their government provides as much stability as Pakistan can hope to achieve in the current climate. A major concern for consequences of our Afghan departure will be the Pakistan Inter-Services Development, the famous or infamous ISI, which is an analog of our CIA. This has been playing a double game while we fight on in Afghanistan. Of the two famous bordering Waziristans, and from a distance you may get an idea of where they are on the map. They're slightly below where bin Laden escaped through Tora Bora. But in any case, there are two, both North and South Waziristans, and the ISI, again the CIA type thing, is willing to succor or even protect the Taliban militias in the north. Those militias circulate into the Afghan fighting, while ISI tries to, in the Pakistan military, of which ISI is a part, while the ISI tries to stifle the Pakistan Taliban in the south, and they have launched major attacks in that area. And these Pakistan Talibans are there and they're being fought because their purpose is to topple their own government of Pakistan. Our diplomacy has centrally been second fiddle to war in this theater. If, as one hopes, we encourage Taliban negotiations with the Karzai figure, even if he goes or is out of the picture, we should have our best diplomats in place in both Pakistan and Afghanistan, but the latter may need military protection until things cool down. It will take great skill to even marginally influence the substance of negotiations while appearing to be hands-off. Afghan sensitivity to foreign interference should be clear by now. At present, the incompatible conditions set by both sides of these proto-negotiations seem to promise almost as much difficulty as the negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. But the Afghans are known for surprising realignments. If one was to follow them over the year, militias switch sides pretty regularly depending on the money or their interests. Perhaps our best line of open diplomacy might be spent on reconciliation between India and Pakistan. You will note our president has talked about this in his visit to India. Divided Kashmir would be the biggest problem between the two countries, and because of its depth and importance, might not be the best issue to tackle first in diplomacy. A more secure Pakistan might have more resources and resolve for their tribal areas, and might even be willing to give up or chase out bin Laden. And we should also not ignore Iran's interest in the consequences of our withdrawal. There have been plenty of violations of international law all around, but our initial strike at the Afghan base of bin Laden and enablers of the Taliban might be subsumed under the dictum of just war that allows the victim of, and our 9/11 is one, allows the victim to return punishment proportionate to the harm suffered. Of course, we continued on after that initial, you might say, defensible strike with an almost invisible invasion which achieved nothing but allowed the Afghan to regroup and bin Laden to escape. Because conditions in Afghanistan are so unstable and unpredictable, it would be foolish to set down precise, date-certain plan for withdrawals that would be optimal in avoiding some uncertain, but predicted by some, disastrous developments, all too easy to trigger. The first early change should be, as Bill advocates, my honorable opponent, that we should suspend, our military should suspend our aggressive offensive fighting, the special operations raids and the drone killings. This too could be difficult if our troops continue to be assaulted. Sometimes defense ends in hot pursuit of attackers, and ambiguity is built into just defense. Am I about on time or?
We've got a couple more minutes.
Couple more minutes.
One.
Is all I need, okay. To avoid potentially disastrous unintended consequences, some patience in staging withdrawals in slices might be best. That is, early and complete withdrawal might involve violence within the Afghan polity that we want to minimize. And sort of a side note, the Afghans are always able to find reasons to fight small-scale family and tribal wars, but that should not concern us. Just as a genre example, staging withdrawals might be something like this. A first reduction should take place quietly quite soon, say of 10,000 troops, having an appearance of regular rotations. It doesn't seem wise to have the Taliban exult in a win with its encouragement to fighting. A wait of 3 months might follow for the evaluation of developments, including the Karzai-Taliban negotiations. If safe for our troops, then the next slice of 10 or 15,000 could withdraw. This and further staggered larger withdrawals might be tied even under the table with reductions of violence because of progress in Taliban negotiations. Since Taliban's current priority goal is to see the foreigners leaving, withdrawals might even be temporarily halted for a time for a sudden crisis, not foreseeable. Maybe a small, invisible, rapid reaction force of NATO and UN soldiers might stay on hand to respond to assaults or harassment of international development aid projects. There should be small or absent till trust in the 3 cups of tea book, which many of you have read, I'm sure, which seems to be just about the only method by which these small-scale development aid projects can be carried out. Of course, the essence of those successful projects is the development of trust, and that does not come easily or quickly. Some projects may not even be widely possible, or such projects may not be widely possible for some time, and the general approach should be very carefully planned for trust-winning tactics, being careful to absorb and apply the multitude of lessons that should have been learned over the years of aid failures.